There is so much bad guitar advice out there in the world keeping us from actually getting better. And you'd think with the existence of the internet that it would have disappeared by now. But sadly, I still see people saying these things everywhere. And I'm pretty confident one or two of these myths are probably holding you back too. So let's get into it. The first piece of bad advice that just won't go away is the idea that you need to keep your thumb glued to the back of the neck. I've brought this up in other videos, but still see people recommending it everywhere. Your thumb should always be moving based on what you're doing. For example, when I play open chords, I'm initially told to keep my thumb right in the middle of the back of the neck here like this. So for this C major chord. But this actually is pretty hard to do, and a much more comfortable position would be to use the fleshy part of my hand, my palm here, place that against the neck, and all of a sudden I relax my grip. And it makes playing this C major chord a lot easier, and that's the same with other open chords. Here's a G major chord. Well, if I put my thumb on the back of the neck, it torques my wrist around like this, and I can still play it, but there's a lot more tension than if I just relax the wrist and just let the hand kind of fall where it wants to naturally. And I'm just pushing against the meaty part of my hand rather than against that thumb and torquing my wrist around. Somewhere where you would put your thumb right on the back of the neck is with bar chords. You can see the shape I'm making doesn't really allow for me to collapse my hand in and put my wrist in that natural position. So instead, I have to place my thumb on the back. And this is one of the reasons why bar chords are so hard on your hand, because you kind of need to employ all of these muscles. You can't really do that. So a lot of times you'll see people play bar chords maybe like this, not even barring, using that thumb over the top, so that wrist doesn't have to bend into a position like this. There's kind of no other way around it. Something you'll notice is that with a lot of the things you play, you'll want your thumb to move around based on the thing that you're playing. I'd highly recommend watching some videos of your favorite guitarists and pay close attention to their fretting hand. You'll notice just how much they adjust their thumb. Another thing you'll notice is that everyone's positioning is just a little different, which conveniently segues us right into our next piece of bad guitar advice. The idea that there's just one right way to do something. This is especially the case for your technique. You'll be told that you need to finger a chord a specific way, hold your pick a specific way, place your arm on a specific spot on the guitar's body. But if you look closely at any great player, you'll notice that they all have little differences. Take vibrato, for instance. There are so many different ways of doing it, and they all totally work. Now, there are absolutely things not to do with any technique, of course, but as long as you're avoiding those bad habits, the way you go about things is going to depend on you. A big part of this has to do with the fact that all of our bodies are different. Different lengths of our limbs, different ranges of mobility. It's a really important thing to acknowledge, because I think some guitar teachers will feel like their way is the only way, when really someone learning needs to find what works for them. Now, you can obviously totally observe this yourself by spotting the differences between your favorite players, but a really obvious example of this is the great Marty Friedman. His picking hand technique is so wildly different from everyone else's out there, yet somehow it allows him to still be one of the greatest players on the planet. And actually, if you can think of any other good examples of a player that does something their own way, make sure you share that in a comment below. I'd be really interested. The next piece of bad advice that I know I was told when I was starting out was that it was necessary to play the acoustic guitar before you could play an electric. This is simply not true. It comes from a good place, but the results are not worth the sacrifice. The idea is that since an acoustic guitar is harder to play, with more string tension, higher action, and no distortion or delay to hide behind, that if you learn the fundamentals on that guitar, well, then when you switch to an electric, it'll be like taking off the ankle weights and everything will be easier. And while that is technically true, the vast majority of the time, people are just gonna quit before they ever get the opportunity to take the ankle weights off. The acoustic guitar isn't why they wanted to play guitar in the first place. So there's little motivation, and those crucial first few weeks, months, or years are just unpleasant. If electric guitar is the goal, then you're better off just starting on an electric. The fundamentals will be easier, and you'll actually be playing the guitar you want to. Remember, 90% of new guitarists quit within the first year. Let's make sure we do everything we can to make sure we aren't part of that statistic. Our next piece of awful advice is that music theory kills creativity. Now, I fully bought into this for like a decade, thinking that if I ever learned how music actually worked, that I would somehow lose my sense of feel, which obviously is not how it works. But this myth does come from a place that I kind of understand, because for a lot of musicians, once they start learning more and more complex or interesting music theory, they want to use that fancy stuff in their music. But the overwhelming majority of music that most people enjoy is just an excellent use of the most basic theory. I'd say that as a guitar player, it's completely necessary to learn the basics of theory. So things like keys, chords, scales, and how they fit together on a basic level. But beyond that, I think it's going to depend on the type of music you want to make. Just don't be too afraid of theory. It's not going to make you sound worse, I promise. And if you feel like there might be some holes in your basic music theory knowledge, I have a completely free printable ebook that you can download in the description below this video. That way you'll always have the most important theory information with you to reference whenever you need it. Practice through the pain. Have you heard that one before? Your body is adapting to something new. Just like working out at the gym, things are gonna get uncomfortable. The problem is that there is a lot of pain you shouldn't be practicing through. Pain in your fingertips? No big deal. As long as your fingers aren't bleeding, you can and usually should keep going. Pain in your hand, wrist, elbow, or shoulder? It's time to take a break. And it's important you learn to recognize the difference between building strength in those areas and potentially causing real damage. Almost every experienced guitar player I know has dealt with some form of tendonitis, shoulder issues, or back issues. And these come about by pushing yourself too hard, too fast. Again, discomfort is good. You want those muscles to be working and getting stronger, but anything more is not worth the risk. Our final piece of bad guitar advice is that the higher you raise your guitar up, the easier it is to play. It sounds right on the surface, but there is a catch. And you can try this out for yourself. If you have a strap on your guitar and you lower it as far as you can go, you'll notice it's really hard to play. Your wrist is all bent and bar chords are almost impossible, but you look very Billy Joe Armstrong, which is pretty cool. Now, as you raise the guitar up, things are going to get easier and easier. But at a certain point, the position of your picking hand starts becoming an issue. And this isn't something you're going to notice right away, but it will have negative effects on how you develop that wing of your playing. So the idea is to find that happy medium for you between high enough for your fretting hand and low enough for your picking hand. This is probably why many classical guitarists use the classical position when sitting, because it's kind of the best of both worlds. Your picking hand is down low while your fretting hand is up high. I'd encourage you to experiment a little bit and make sure you're not nerfing either aspect of your playing. So I really feel like I'm only scratching the surface here. And I'd like to know if there are any other bad pieces of advice that you were given as you were learning guitar. So if you do have anything, please put that in the comments below this video. All right, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.